All right, welcome back, everybody. Today I have a special guest, Meghla Bhardwaj. She's going to give you guys a master class on the 10 steps to source from India to USA. Welcome, Meghla. How's it going?
Thank you so much, Gary. Super excited to be back here. It's going pretty well. Everything's cool. How about you?
It's going great. I think this topic is super important right now because obviously right now, with the elections, with the trade war going on between US and China, I think a lot of sellers are really scratching their heads wondering, what's a good alternative. And I think India is one of the best options. That's why I wanted to invite my good friend Meghla Bhardwaj to join us here today. For those of you guys meeting her for the first time, Meghla has over 20 years experience so in the Asia sourcing industry. She's visited hundreds of factories, dozens of trade shows in the region, super deep understanding of manufacturing and sourcing processes. And together with her partners, Mark and Kevin, she organizes sourcing trips to India and Vietnam. She's also the co-founder of India Sourcing Network. So before we get started, Meghla, who is this training for today and why is it so important?
So this training is for anybody who wants to diversify their sourcing and doesn't want to put all their eggs in one basket. So if you are already sourcing in China, as you mentioned, Gary, there's so much unpredictability in the overall, situation, global situation. So it's really important to diversify. It's also for anyone who's looking for unique products because India offers a lot of unique products that are not offered in other countries. So if you want to differentiate your brand, India is a great option. And it is very important. Of course, the timeliness is very important because now is the right time to start looking at different options and diversify your sourcing.
Yes, excellent. All right, I know we got a lot to cover today. So Meghla, without further ado, would you like to share your screen and start the presentation?
Yes, let's do that. Okay, so we're going to be talking about 10 steps to source products from India. But first of all, we're going to talk about why you should consider sourcing from India, what types of products you can import from India, some differences with China. Then we're going to go into the 10 steps, and we're also going to be covering our India sourcing trip. In case you want a synopsis of all of the 10 steps, we've created a cheat sheet exclusively for you. So you can go to indiasourcing.net/7fig and download this cheat sheet. All right,
Perfect.
So let's get into
it.
Just
a quick note for you guys watching, the link will be below in the bio. So if you want to grab that so you can follow along, feel free to go ahead. All right, let's get into this, Meghla.
Okay, awesome. So here are some of the top reasons why you should consider sourcing from India. One, unique products. There are a lot of products that are not available in other countries. For example, wooden, metal, a lot of handicraft items that are produced by artisans that really specialize in different skills that have been transferred from generation to generation. So very unique products coming out of India, especially in the home decor gift category. And these products tend to do, really well on Amazon. Low MOQs. So a lot of these products are handcrafted. And so suppliers are open to very low MOQs, even as low as 100, 200 pieces. And but at the same time, these suppliers are also scalable. So if you want to order a container, for example, that is also possible. So that's a big advantage, especially if you're just starting out or if you want to maybe test some products. There's also a concept of MOV, which means minimum order value, which means you can source a variety of different SKUs and meet the supplier's MOV. Let's say it's usually $5,000 to $8,000, and that also gives you an opportunity to test different SKUs. Most of the suppliers that you deal with will speak English, so communication is much easier. You can always just pick up the phone, call them, do a video call. It's much easier. There are no trade tariffs when you import products from India to the US. So this is a huge benefit. Of course, there are some import duties, but the additional Trump tariffs, there are no additional duties on India-made products. So for most products, there's either zero duty or maybe 2 to 4 to maximum 8% or so. A lot of products in India are eco-friendly products, and that's a big focus of manufacturers here. So if you are looking to diversify or if you're focusing on this niche, India is a great country to do that. So some of the products that are, considered eco-friendly, for example, are of course products that are made from wood, metal. Not only are the products eco-friendly, but also the packaging that suppliers do can be very eco-friendly. So they can, totally avoid plastic, for example. Labor costs are much lower in India than they are in China. So if your product does require manual work, then you can find better prices in India. Okay, what types of products can you source? So we'll just breeze through this section. And these are the products that Amazon e-commerce sellers really have found success in. So there's lots of home decor and gift items made out of different materials, specifically natural materials. There's kitchen and tableware items. There's furniture, furnishings, huge variety of cushion covers, rugs, bed sheets, pillow covers, carpets, pet products, eco-friendly products, as I mentioned, fashion. So there's jewelry, accessories, footwear, belts, textiles and apparel, cotton, denim, silk, wool. Organic cotton, this is a huge category. And in fact, there are more GOTS certified factories in India than there are in China. So that's a big advantage. If you're looking for any types of products that are made of organic cotton, specifically apparel, India is a great option. Leather and also food. We've been sending a lot of superfood items like shilajit, for example, to Europe recently. So this is a great category from India as well. Here's some pictures just to show some of the designs. So for example, these are some home decor items that are made from glass, metal, wood. These are some of the wooden trays and ceramic plates. Indian suppliers specialize in mixing different materials. So for example, here you'll see that there's a cutting board that has marble on the sides and then wood in the middle. These are some leather products. So you'll find equestrian products and also, belts, bags, even leather apparel. Furniture made from wood, metal, leather. Again, very unique pieces that you may not find in other countries. Jewelry. So India specializes in semi-precious stones. That's one of the big focus areas. There's also diamonds in case anyone's interested, and sports shoes, as well as other types of footwear. Fashion garments, so again, mostly made from natural materials, specifically a huge variety of women's garments. Pet products, again, made in different materials, leather, metal, fabric. Eco-friendly products. Now, this is a very interesting product over here. This is made from a material called cork, which is basically from the bark of the tree. Bark of a specific tree, and this is a very eco-friendly material. It's being positioned as an alternative to PU and genuine leather as well. So this is a very niche kind of material that is gaining popularity, specifically in Europe. And there are other similar materials, for example, made from cactus or pineapple fibers or banana fibers, for example. So a lot of innovation and R&D happening in terms of alternative materials. Furnishings and macrame items, very popular from India as well. Now, this is a map that shows all the different types of products that are manufactured in India. As you can see, most of the production is concentrated in the north, and there are cities that specialize in different types of products. And most of these, products, or most of the cities specialize in certain types of materials. For example, Moradabad specializes in metal and wood products, Khurja and ceramics, Kanpur is for leather, Firozabad is for glass, and so on. So this just gives you an idea of what products are manufactured. All right, in terms of fabrics, India has a huge variety of different types of fabrics, not only mill-made fabrics, but also handloom fabrics. If you look at this map, this is a representation of all the key types of fabrics that are available in each state. In fact, each state specializes in different types of fabrics that are very unique to India. For example, here you see Gujarat. There's a lot of tie and dye. There's mirror work in Rajasthan, this type of embroidery from Uttar Pradesh. So if you're creative, you can come up with a lot of different types of products made from these different types of fabrics. Gary, do you have any questions so far? Should I keep going?
No, let's keep going. This is great.
Okay, cool. Some of the key differences between India and China. So, whereas India has a lot of unique handmade products, China specializes in more mass-produced products. As I mentioned, India has low MOQs. China, typically the MOQs tend to be higher. In India, generally we found there's more respect for IP, whereas in China, IP infringements are rampant. And one of the reasons for this is because a lot of Chinese manufacturers are selling directly on Amazon, whereas in India, most of the manufacturers prefer to sell B2B, and they're not yet, selling directly on Amazon. A lot of them have tried, but have not been very successful. So most suppliers that we talk to, they just want to focus on B2B. Lower labor and production costs, whereas in China, production costs have been increasing over the last 5 to 8 years. No tariffs when importing into the US, whereas China does have tariffs when you're importing into the US. Some of the disadvantage of sourcing from India, there are fewer product categories. In China, you can source practically anything and everything, whereas India has a limitation. For example, if you're doing electronics, China is really the only place to go to. Not all factories are online, so it's more difficult to find factories in India, whereas in China, you've got Alibaba. A lot of the factories are very easily accessible. There's also not much information available online about how to source in India. Whereas China, there's so much information available, YouTube tutorials, experts, so it's easy to get started.
Meghla, could I
Yes.
ask a quick question? I know
Sure.
one of the historical differences between India and China when it comes to sourcing was with, let's say, the logistics, like, moving products around. My understanding, it took longer in India in China. How's the situation as of right now? Have things improved?
Yes, things have improved. And currently, from the Mumbai port, which is the most a commonly used port in India on the West Coast, it takes about 22 days that's the sailing time from Mumbai port to New York port. And then if you add on, time at the ports for clearance, it's about 30 to 32 days, which is comparable to, products that are shipped from China to, say, the West Coast, for example.
Yeah, and what about
the delays sometimes happen?
Yeah, sorry. What about within India?
That's what
does it take longer? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to explain. That in India, the port is, or most of the production happens in North India. Let me just go back to this map real quick. So most of the production happens over here, whereas the Mumbai port is here on the West Coast, right? And so this inland transportation is what, sometimes takes time, and it could take a week to 10 days for products to be sent from the factory to the port. Whereas in China, most of the factories are located along the port in cities where there are ports. For example, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Ningbo. Each of these major production hubs has, ports. And so this is one key difference between India and China. And that's why sometimes it takes longer for products to, ship out of India.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. Let's keep going.
Okay. Yep. All right. So let's get started. So what is the first step once you start thinking about sourcing from India? So the first step is really to determine the cost effectiveness. Now, as I mentioned previously, not all products can be made cost effectively in India. So you've got to determine, is this product really feasible to manufacture in India? For example, if it's a plastic widget, or if it's an electronics product, then maybe it is China. So you need to come to India or any other country, for example, Vietnam, Turkey, for the products that suppliers in that country specialize in. So you have to determine, are there suppliers that already make and export the product? Are raw materials and components easily available? And where in India is the product manufactured? So you must know all of these things before you even decide that you want to start, sourcing in India. So that's step number one. Now, let's say you have determined that, okay, this is a good product that can be sourced in India. Then you go on to the next step, which is basically compiling product and packaging specifications. So now you have to decide, okay, what is it exactly that you want? What's the material? How do you want it packaged? What are the specifications, the dimensions, the coating? And here's where you do all your market research on Amazon or however you do market research. Specifically, if you're selling in retail, for example, you can go into shops or talk to consumers. But this is where you decide what exactly you want to source. And the more details you give the suppliers, the better, response time, the better pricing you will get. And also the faster they will respond to you because they have all of the information that they need to give you a good pricing. You should also find out if there are any safety standards or mandatory requirements to import into the US. For example, if it's anything that is for a baby or a kid, then there usually are some certifications that you need to follow. Also, most Indian suppliers are fluent in English, so it will be easy for them to understand all of these specifications. But when you put the document together, make sure that it's it's easy to read and easy to comprehend, for somebody reading it. It shouldn't be like 10 pages of text. Put your specifications in bullet points, use images to describe the product, and make it easy to understand and comprehend. Then the third step is to identify specialized suppliers and, contact them basically. So for example, you can speak to a few suppliers making your product, and you can try to shortlist some suppliers that you think are capable of manufacturing the product. It's really important to make sure that the supplier manufactures and has expertise in the product that you are looking to source. Because many suppliers in India will just say that they can do a product, but then they will go and outsource it. But you want to make sure that the supplier has control over the processes, the raw materials, the QC, and all of that is done in-house, and they really specialize in that material or that specific product. So that's something that you want to consider. Also look at their manufacturing capabilities, their capacity, their export experience, their certifications, because all of this is going to be very important. I mean, price is, of course, the very important factor, but then the actual capabilities of a supplier and whether or not they can meet your requirements, are very important as well. And then, of course, if you need any, help,
Meghla,
go ahead.
Sorry, can I ask, what's the best way to contact suppliers in India?
Yes, that's a really good question, Gary. And there are a couple of different ways. So first of all, there are, export directories like Global Sources and Alibaba. They do have offices in India. Some of the suppliers, from India, of course, these two directories really specialize and focus on China. So 90% of the suppliers on these two websites are from China. However, if you use the country location filter, you will be able to find suppliers from India and other countries as well. So that is, very easy to do. And of course, most people are very familiar with these export directories, so they know how to, navigate them. The benefit of using these directories is that all of the companies on these directories are export focused, because both of these directories are, really focused on overseas and cross-border trade. You can also just go on Google and do a search for different suppliers, because Google is not blocked in India as it is in China. So a lot of the suppliers are, they have websites. There are also sourcing agencies like India Sourcing Network has a done for you sourcing service where we can find the supplier for you based on your requirements. We also have a service that's called Find Me a Supplier, where we don't manage the entire sourcing process for you, but we just find a supplier based on your requirements, and then you can, deal with the supplier directly. So there are different ways of, finding suppliers. Okay. Also attending trade shows. I think that is such a great way to find suppliers. You just attend, one trade show and you can meet thousands of suppliers at a time. And we'll talk about this later when we talk about India sourcing trip. So, yeah.
Okay. And when you contact them, are you normally using email or WhatsApp? Like, what's the favored way of doing business in India?
So initial contact can be via email. And in case they don't, or, if you're using a platform like Global Sources or Alibaba, they do have a messaging option over there. And you can also send an RFQ, which is sent by email. So if you're using the platform, then just use the platform's messaging options. But otherwise, you can maybe send them an email. But suppliers are very slow to respond to emails. I will tell you that. So it's always good to send a WhatsApp message or maybe even just call them. I mean, that's what our team does. We use emails to basically formalize things. Let's say we have discussions on WhatsApp or via call on, specifications, or if there are any changes to be required, etc. And once we've agreed on certain things, then we communicate the final agreement via email. So I think it's important to use both WhatsApp and email. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Let's keep going.
Okay, cool. Yep. So the next thing that you need to do is request quotes from suppliers. So let's say you've identified 3 or 4 good suppliers, then you, initiate communication with them. by sending them your specifications and requesting detailed quotes. But as I mentioned over here, keep your RFQ easy to understand. Don't make it like a 10-page PDF with a lot of history and background and why you're doing the product. Like I've seen Amazon sellers that really write very long RFQs. Keep it short to the point. Make sure that there's information that is only the information that is really required needs to be there in the RFQ. And you can give a bit of information about your brand. Like suppliers always like to know more about the brand that is, the seller or the company that is asking for the quote. If it's a, largish company, and especially if you have been sourcing from China and you are now looking to diversify, say that in the RFQ or in the introduction email as well, because then they know that you're a serious buyer and they will take you more seriously and they will really prioritize your RFQ. Now, once you've received quotes from different suppliers, then you've got to evaluate potential suppliers based on, how viable they are for your product. So you have to look at the pricing that you've got, of course, the capabilities, the production lead time, their capacity. So there are a lot of different factors that you should consider before deciding on which or how many suppliers or which suppliers you want to get samples from. So if your supplier meets your expectations, then proceed to get samples. And I wouldn't recommend getting samples from 5, 6, 7 suppliers. Just narrow it down. Do your research upfront and narrow it down in maximum 2 or 3. You don't need too many samples. Just make sure that the supplier has the capability and that they do manufacture the product that you're looking for in-house, and you should be good. Sampling should not be an issue. Of course, you can also negotiate on pricing at this point. It also helps to give the supplier a target price. I know a lot of people hesitate on this because they say that, oh, what if the supplier gives me a lower price? But more often than not, they will give you a higher price because they do have a lot of buffer in terms of their margins and profitability. So what I would usually suggest is just give them a target price, and maybe your target price can be a few notches lower than what you really, really want, right? And then see if they can match that or not. So I just think it just makes the whole process so much easier if you give them a target price. Okay, so getting samples. And over here also, if you're doing a very customized product, you can sign an NNN agreement with them. It's very common to do that. You can also ask them to send an existing product that they might have if you don't want to go through the entire process of developing the new product. So if you just want to get an idea of their quality, you can just ask them to send an existing product, or maybe even ask them to send a product from the assembly line of another production order that is going on. Okay, now once you've got the sample, then you've got to initiate the ordering process, and you would send a purchase order. Again, detailed product, packaging, quality criteria, payment terms, delivery schedule, and other important details. Make sure that you mention, everything very, very clearly in this purchase order. And of course, you can also involve a QC company at this point. Usually what people do is that they involve the QC company towards the end of production, like when they are starting to do or when they have to do an inspection, a pre-shipment inspection. That's when they contact the QC company. But that's not the right thing to do. You should involve the QC company right at the beginning so they can help determine your quality criteria. And then you give these quality criteria to your supplier and say that, okay, this is what we are going to check the products against once or when we do the pre-shipment inspection. If you talk to them towards the end of production, they're going to say, hey, you didn't tell us about this quality criteria. You didn't tell us that this is important to you. So talk to the QC company or your sourcing agent before you place the order and ask them, okay, I'm placing an order for this product. What can go wrong? What should I be looking for? And then just make a list of those, quality criteria. Also mention penalties in case there are delays or quality issues. Then the 7th step is to make payment. Typically, there's a deposit of 30 to 50% when placing an order, and the balance is paid when the products pass pre-shipment inspection. And what we found is this, virtual bank, Air Wallets, is an ideal solution to pay Indian suppliers. We've tried so many different, payment solution providers, but we found Air Wallets to be very comprehensive. They're very, efficient when it comes to India, and their rates are also better than, any of the others that we've tried. And we do have a special offer in case anyone's interested. You can go to indiasourcing.net/Air Wallets. Now, once you've made the payment, you can't just forget about the order. You have to follow up with the supplier every, 2 weeks or so. Typically, delivery lead time is between 8 to 12 weeks. So, you should at this point follow up with them every couple of weeks, make sure that things are, happening on time, because in India, delays do happen, especially for these handcrafted kind of products. If you're doing other types of products that are coming out of a machine, typically delays are less, but because there's so much handwork involved and there's so many moving parts in these handcrafted products, delays can happen.
Meghla,
All right.
in terms of managing the delays, what advice would you give someone that's just starting to work with India? Let's say they're already familiar with working with a Chinese supplier. Like, is there some sort of buffer or expectation that they should set when working with their first Indian supplier?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question, Gary. So first of all, specify or mention the deadlines and get them to agree to the deadlines in the purchase order. That's number one. And secondly, follow up with them on a regular basis, just every 2 or 3 weeks. Hey, are there any issues? Is everything going according to plan? Can you send me pictures, videos? Create a WhatsApp group with them and, ask them for regular updates. That's what we do for, the suppliers that we work with as well. Also, tying delays to penalties, that also really helps. In most cases, you would not really penalize them unless it's like a, very extreme delay for some reason. You would not do that. I would say build in a buffer of at least 2 weeks, during in your delivery lead time. So have a buffer of at least 2 weeks. That also helps just to manage some unpredictable delays.
Okay, excellent. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Then step 8 is conducting quality control. And again, of course, pre-shipment inspection should be done when, 80 to 90% of the products are packed. And I won't go into the details, but there's AQL standards, pretty standard procedures that are followed in China and other countries. They're followed in India as well. There are a lot of third-party inspection companies that you can use. If you use our sourcing services, that includes QC and inspection. I would also recommend, if your orders are exceeding $10,000, then you should also conduct a midline inspection when about 30 to 40% of the products are done. Or maybe if once the products have been sort of semi-finished, you can do a midline inspection. And as I said, involve a QC company right from the beginning, even before placing an order. That really, really helps. Okay, step 9 is coordinating with a freight forwarder. So you should determine if you want your shipment to be sent by sea or air based on your timeline and your budget. If, for example, it's a small and light product, you can send it by air freight. But if it is bulky, of course, air freight doesn't make sense. You can send it via sea. We have certain 3PLs and freight forwarders that we recommend for India specifically, because not every freight forwarder understands Amazon requirements. So if you are shipping into Amazon FBA, then make sure that the freight forwarder understands how to do that. So if anybody requires a freight forwarder, we'll be happy to do an introduction to our recommended company.
And Meghla, can I ask about freight forwarders? In China, there's Amazon Global Logistics, or AGL, and there are certain advantages that sellers can enjoy, especially with AWD, and to cut out, some of those inventory fees that Amazon charges. Is the same available for India?
So currently it is available for India, but only for India-based sellers. So if you're an overseas seller sourcing products from India, it's not available for you, because you do need a GST number and you need to have a company in India in order to avail Amazon Logistics. So
See.
yeah, that is kind of a limitation as of now. But I'm sure there's like a workaround that, I don't know, you could probably, we'll have to look into that, but there's always workarounds.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. Okay. And then of course, the last step is to reorder. And when you reorder, just make sure that you are keeping the delivery lead times in mind, because sometimes, especially for handcrafted products, the delivery lead times can be longer. So typically what sellers do is that, once they place the order, even before the order has, their products have reached Amazon FBA, they will start thinking about the next order and, start placing the next order as soon as the products start to sell. So this can be a little tricky, because if you haven't really, if you're launching a new product, you don't really know if the product will sell and when is the right time to, place the second order. So it's a bit tricky, but there's something that you need to focus on and manage, when you start sourcing from India, because you can't really say that, oh, I want this order in like a week now. My product is selling really well. Now send this product to you in a week's time. So it can take time. Of course, there are ways to, once you start ordering, once you have like 2 or 3 orders that you've done and there's sort of a rotation, then it gets easier to manage. And the supplier can also hold inventory for you in the factory, or they can also maybe have semi-finished products for you in the factory. And then whenever you want to place an order, they can just quickly finish the product and send it over to you. So that, again, cuts the lead time significantly. For example, there's a buyer that we're helping them source urns from India. Now, they have 10, 12 different SKUs that they are producing, but the basic shape of the urn is the same. The material is the same. So the supplier basically, creates these blank urns and stores them in their factory. Now, whenever there's any need for a specific design, the supplier just slaps on the design onto that blank urn and ships it out. But at least the main, product is already made. So all they need to do is apply the design, the specific design that the buyer requires. So of course, it depends on the product, and you can always come up with unique ways to, manage lead times. But this is something just to keep in mind for handcrafted products. Okay. So you can download the cheat sheet. Once again, just a reminder, indiasourcing.net/7fig. Okay. So Gary, any questions before we start talking about India sourcing trip?
What are some of the top rookie mistakes that you see sellers make sourcing it from India the first time?
Okay, fantastic question. So first of all is not sourcing from an export experience supplier. And we've come across so many people over the last, 5 or 6 years since we've started sourcing, who buy products from a company that they found online or maybe on IndiaMart. Now, IndiaMart is a website that is really domestic focused. There are manufacturers there, there are exporters, but the majority of companies on this website are domestic focused. There are even traders who are importing products from China and selling in the domestic market. So, people place orders with these companies, and then these companies don't have export licenses and they're unable to export. So that is an issue that we have faced. So you need to vet the supplier really well. And, suppliers is unfortunate, but some people out there will just take advantage of you if you are, an overseas buyer, and they will accept your order, even though they know that they're not able to, ship it out. So this does happen sometimes. You've got to be aware of this. Another mistake that I see people making is ordering very small quantities. Now, what happens is when you order very small quantities, your shipping costs become very high. And so, that the overall product becomes unprofitable. Now, in China, shipping costs are, relatively lower than India for smaller products or smaller orders, because a lot of suppliers or freight forwarders are consolidating shipments in China, right? And Gary, you know more about this as well. They're basically clubbing a lot of different orders from different suppliers into one container, and they are importing it under one company name, right? It's not LCL, but it's consolidation. So you're basically not paying for, documentation charges or port charges or all of those fixed costs. You're not necessarily paying for all of those, for these small shipments in China. Whereas in India, LCL is more common and there's not much consolidation of shipments happening. So every time you ship products from India, whether it's a 1 CBM order or it's a 27 CBM order, there are certain fixed costs that you will have to incur. These are port charges and documentation charges and etc. And they amount to about $600 or so. So the larger the shipment that you have, the more spread out these costs, these fixed costs will be, over the products. So that is another thing that I think. Also, not conducting inspections at all. That is a mistake as well. And I think, whether you're sourcing from China, Vietnam, India, anywhere, you should have somebody go into the factory and make sure that they are shipping out what you asked for and what you paid for. Otherwise, it's a big risk.
Yeah, that's good advice. Any inspection agency that you recommend on the ground in India?
Yeah, so a couple of agencies. We recommend RSJ Inspection. That's one. We've been working with them in the past. We worked with them for a couple of orders. And so they do a good job. They're reasonably priced as well. We also offer inspection services, India Sourcing Network. So you can either use our done-for-you sourcing service, or you can use our, inspection service. So that's available too. Other than that, there's Kima, and they are, of course, in present in China and other countries as well. There's also VTrust. So most of the global, well-known kind of agencies in China are also available in India.
Okay, excellent. All right. I know we covered a lot today, but I mean, this is kind of the tip of the iceberg, and Meghla is organizing a India sourcing trip coming up in October. And I've actually attended this trip some years ago prior to the pandemic. So I think this is a super valuable opportunity if you really want to go deep into sourcing from India, meet real suppliers, get coached on how to, negotiate. And India, please tell us more about this trip.
Yes,
and Meghla,
super exciting.
Please tell us more. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, do you remember this, Gary?
Yes, turn back the clock. That was from many years ago. I was a young man back then.
Come on, you still are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is basically an 8-day trip that has 3 key aspects. One is to help you learn all about sourcing from India. Second, to help you source products from India. And third, to help you experience India's culture. So it's designed to provide you with all the information, the knowledge, connections, and products that you need to build a profitable e-commerce or profitable brand, with products made in India. So this basically, any sourcing trip, there are sourcing trips to China, and, we do one to Vietnam as well. So like any sourcing trip, this basically helps you leapfrog the competition and really speed up the entire sourcing process. So I'll just quickly go over some of the key benefits of sourcing from or coming on the trip. So first of all, you can increase profitability in your business by sourcing innovative products that are available in India. And I think now more than ever, it is so important to have differentiated products in your brand, because there's so much pressure on sellers these days. There's, Amazon fees going up. There's trade tariffs. There's competition from Chinese suppliers. There is Temu and Shein that are coming up. And now Amazon is launching a section where, Chinese sellers can sell directly on Amazon. And so that is also going to increase pressure. So you have to differentiate your products. And sourcing from India is a great way to find premium, unique products that are not easily, copied by other sellers. You can speed up the sourcing process, of course. When you're at a trade show, you're actually meeting hundreds of suppliers at the same time. You're touching and feeling products and getting a sense of the quality of the products, which takes time if you do it online. You contact so many suppliers, ask them to send you samples, then you're not happy with the samples and do it again, etc. So touching and feeling products is also key. And of course, you're speeding up the process. You can find new suppliers for existing products. Let's say you're sourcing something from China and you want to diversify. So this is a great way to come to India, attend the trade show, or we can also organize separate factory visits for you if the trade show does not have exhibitors of that kind of product. You can learn all about sourcing from India. So there's really a crash course that we provide on everything related to, how to manage relationships and how to optimize the logistics and payments and cultural sensitivities. So we really deep dive into all aspects related to sourcing from India. We also invite experts and people who have already been sourcing from India, so you can learn from their mistakes and experiences. Know which products can be sourced in India, meet with suppliers and sourcing service providers. So we do a full day conference where we share information and knowledge. We bring brands to share their experiences. And we also bring in service providers like freight forwarders and lawyers and QC companies. So all of these people are in the room, for you to build your business, because you will be needing these services once you start sourcing from India. So you're basically getting everything as a package, your products, suppliers, sourcing service providers, everything is available to you, and you're meeting them in person. That really helps build relationships. And in India, relationships are really, really, really important. We could probably do a separate webinar on that.
Yeah,
you can also, you can also visit factories. So apart from being at the trade show, we also do additional factory visits. We can also arrange factory tours for you in different cities if you have specific product requirements. And immerse in India's rich culture and history. We do a Bollywood night. I don't know, Gary, if you remember that fun Bollywood night where we were all dressed in.
Yeah, I remember the head, what do you call it? The headdress.
Turban.
The turban.
You can see
that was very cool.
A couple of people here wearing those as well.
Yeah.
We don't have any footage of you dancing, Gary. Next time you come, we have to.
Thank God we don't. People will be turning off this video right now if they saw it. But no, it was it was a great cultural experience as well. My first time to India, as well as learning how to source and visiting the Delhi Fair, which is like the Canton Fair of India, with so many suppliers all at the same place at the same time. So really, like what Meghla said, crash course to really speed up the whole process to source from India.
Yeah. And then of course, networking, I think that's incredible as well. With any such trip, you're spending so much time with other sellers who are sort of, at the same wavelength. They're maybe facing the same challenges that you are facing, or they have overcome the challenges that you're facing. So networking, of course, at any event, it just goes without saying that networking is one of the biggest advantages of attending, a conference or a sourcing trip like this. Networking is just out of this world, because you're with the same people for 8 days. You're, with them for breakfast, lunch, dinner. So there's so much conversation that happens. And there's such a lot of bonding and relationship building with other sellers as well. Okay, so real quick, what's included? This is basically an all-inclusive trip where once you pay the fee, all you need to do is arrive at the Delhi airport, and then everything else is taken care of from there on. We pick you up from the airport, bring you to the hotel. There's a full day India sourcing conference. There's 3 days guided tour at the trade fair. We do mastermind sessions, debrief sessions in the evenings. You have access to all of the vetted service providers. We stay in nice 5-star hotels. The breakfast buffet is amazing in these hotels. A lot of different types of cuisines, including Indian, Western, Chinese. So food is not going to be an issue. There's also optional factory tours in Moradabad or Jaipur. We also do a day trip to Taj Mahal, and of course, Bollywood night, which is where we dress up in Indian attire and there's singing and dancing. We also provide a lot of pre and post trip support. So we, give you guidance on how to apply for your visa and what dates to book your tickets on. how to prepare for the trip, what to pack, what not to pack, how to navigate the trade show. We have a whole session. We do a live webinar where we give you tips on how to talk to suppliers at the trade show, what to ask, what not to ask, how to capture all of the information so that you're not wasting your time over there. So there's a lot of information that we share before the trip to help you prepare and make sure that your trip is has a good ROI, basically. All transportation and airport transfers. We also provide you SIM cards if you need. All meals are included in the price that you pay. There are other sourcing trips I know in China that include some meals, exclude some meals, but for us, it's very clear. Everything is included. So all you need to do is arrive at the Delhi airport. And we also sponsor the education of one underprivileged child in India for a year for every attendee. So this is an organization that we've been associated with for quite a few years. And it's just a way for us to give back to the community. All right. So in case anyone's interested, this is the pricing. So there are two options available. You can either share a room with a business partner. If you do, you can save $500, or we can pair you with another attendee. So that is $4,500, or you can have a single room in the hotel, and the cost of that is $5,000. And the payments are done in 3 monthly installments. So it's not like you have to pay everything in one go. We also have a discount. So if you use the code 7FIG, there is a discount on both options, and you can get a discount of up to $150.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to thank you so much, Meghla, for this very valuable training on the 10 steps sourcing from India to the USA. And if you are thinking about doing this, I highly recommend you consider the India sourcing trip. I think this way it will really fast track being able to source from India and actually meet with actual suppliers and really get coaching from Meghla and the rest of the team. And make sure you take advantage of the coupon code 7FIG. And just to be transparent, I am an affiliate of India sourcing trip because I believe that this trip will help you with your sourcing needs. And when you do sign up, I will get an affiliate commission, which helps us provide the free content that we provide to you guys and all the resources. All right. So Meghla, thank you so much. Anything else that we should cover before we sign out?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot. And if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to me, info@indiasourcingtrip.com, or send me an email, send me a messenger a request, Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn. I'm available on all the social media channels as well. So happy to address any questions.
Excellent. And make sure you grab the cheat sheet at indiasourcing.net/7FIG. The link is in the description below. This way you can follow along and you can get the summary of sourcing from India. All right. So Meghla, thank you again for this super valuable training. I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else did too. Thank you everybody for joining us. We'll see you guys at the next session. Bye everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Gary.